BBC Radio Gloucestershire.
In terms of wonderful events for the weekend, I mean, Gloucester Cathedral is such an amazing venue for so many things. And live music has got to be up there with one of them. My next guest, described as one of the most exciting English classical guitarists of the current generation. This is Michael Christian Durrant. Took up the guitar at the age of 4 and continues to inspire audiences across the world with his expressive playing and engaging stage persona. With his upcoming recital at the Cathedral, this is tomorrow night. Really pleased to say that you're going to get a sneak preview now. Hello to you.
Hello, Claire.
How are you?
Oh, very good. Very good. Thank you for having me here this afternoon.
No problem. It's not that far from you, is it? Worcester, where you're from?
Well, actually, yes, I did grow up near Worcester, but actually I've driven down from Yorkshire over the last kind of 12 hours. I had a concert up in Yorkshire yesterday evening. That finished at about 8:30, 9 o'clock, because it was an early concert. So I then got on the motorway and drove down, arrived near Worcester about midnight, hit the hay and then drove down here. So you asked me earlier, where do I live? At the moment, it's very much out of a suitcase.
In your car.
In my car or in an aeroplane, yeah.
That must be, I mean, can you, when I say get along with that, I mean, can you cope with that because you're playing your music all over? Of
course. Well, it's obviously difficult. I think most vocations come with their complications, but really it's worth it. It takes a lot of energy, and you have to maintain a lot of physical energy. For example, over the last 2 months, I've been on tours over to Vietnam, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand. I think in 1 month I spent 4 days in an aeroplane. And it takes its physical toll, but when you get up on the stage and you play, it's really worth it. And when you communicate with an audience, it's wonderful.
4 years old, picking up the guitar. Was it sort of then set in stone that this would be your career?
I think I decided pretty early on that music for me was the thing that resonated, and something that I really wanted to commit to. And I was lucky in that sense that I just had that. I had a lot of support from my family, and really, really lucky to have that. There's an interesting story as to why I started playing when I was 4 years old. It all comes down to the idea, allegedly, according to my mother, that when I was about 4, I had a desperate need to be a cowboy, as I think a lot of 4-year-old boys do. And so I begged and managed to kind of get my mother to buy me a cowboy hat. And apparently I wore it out to kind of all the shops and everything, and out in public, to much the embarrassment of my family. And then I realised I actually needed a guitar to go with the cowboy hat, because the outfit wasn't complete. And so I managed to get hold of a guitar through my family as well. And then I realised I couldn't play anything on it. So I could pose in front of the mirror at the age of 4 with my hat and my guitar. I was just about to start school, and I remember my mum saying, "Oh, well, would you like to organise some guitar lessons as a guitar teacher at the school?" And that was it, really. So from the age of 4, I've wanted to be a cowboy. I've ended up being a classical guitarist, but
hey,
that's
I want to know what would have happened had you wanted to be an astronaut.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah,
so
the sky's the limit.
Why classical then? Because many might say, give a lad a guitar and he wants to be Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton, or why classical?
Yeah, I think you'd be entitled to want to aspire to be someone like Jimi Hendrix, because and Clapton are great musicians. What really gets me about classical guitar is the variety of music that one can play. The main difference between normal kind of standard approach to the guitar and the classical guitar is really the intricacy of the technique. So one spends a lot of time developing their right hand technique in order to pluck the strings in a much more intricate way. And what that does is it opens up a huge variety of music. And referring back to the concert that I'll be playing tomorrow evening at the Cathedral, Gloucester Cathedral, the tour, it's the first day of a tour that I've going to be doing throughout the UK, entitled Classical Guitar Masterworks. And the thrust behind that is that I'm playing pieces written by composers such as Mozart, Debussy, piano standards, and arranged for the guitar. Alongside some very well-known classical guitar pieces by composers such as Heitor Villa-Lobos, Agustin Barrios Mangoré. The real names these are, by the way.
Said beautifully.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I've had a bit of practice. But I think it's the versatility, and I'm playing music from Spain, from France, from Brazil, from kind of Austria, from Mozart, and varied to the extreme, and I think that's what really gets me about the classical guitar. You can play a huge variety of music, and then not to mention the wonderful intimate sound. I think that's what really draws one in.
Absolutely. I describe classical guitar as mesmerising. It's almost hypnotic the way that it does draw you in. You've brought your guitar in.
I have.
And before we talk a little bit more about Gloucester Cathedral, do you mind just playing us something?
I'd be very happy to, yes. I'm going to play an excerpt of a piece called Asturias. Asturias is a staple classical guitar piece, and it's written by a Spanish composer called Isaac Albéniz, and it's a wonderful, fiery Spanish guitar piece, and I think it shows the guitar at its kind of most mesmerising, hopefully.
Fabulous. If you've just tuned in, you're listening to Radio Gloucestershire, and this is Michael Christian Durrant, who, as I say, is at Gloucester Cathedral. I'll give you the details in just a bit, but, well, enjoy. Wow. I'm actually speechless. That was stunning. That was just one person, one guitar, which it sounds like there's about 6 in here.
I think that's the wonderful thing about that piece. It's wonderful if to make a radio presenter speechless is a huge thing. So
to make Claire Carter speechless, that's what everybody will tell you.
I'll take that as a great review. It's wonderful to consider the architecture of how that piece is put together. You start off with a melody in the low bass, offset against the treble note.
It's such a famous piece as well, isn't it? Everybody recognises it.
For an obvious reason. It's so beautiful and passionate. So you've got 2 things happening here. The melody against just one note there. And then it builds up to 2 notes. So you've got...
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
And then I think the real interest comes when the chords are going against the melody. So you've got the chord strum, the rasgueado as it's called, against the melody and the open string. So very slowly you've got...
You're doing 3 things at once.
Yes, I am, exactly.
And people say men can't multitask. How long does it take you to master a piece like that?
Gosh, well, as we've spoken about, I've played since I was a very young lad. So it takes a while. I think if you develop your technique, then mastering a piece like that maybe can take a few weeks from the first kind of looking at the music, studying the score, looking at the background and the historical context of a piece, which is something I always find very interesting to shape up. So it can take a few weeks, but you need to have a clear diary in order to develop your repertoire. What tends to happen is I'll put a few weeks aside in a year to work on some pieces like that. But it depends. Some pieces just flow in. From the moment you look at it, it can take a day or two, and it feels like you've played it before and you're just relearning it. Whereas some pieces you have to graft a little bit more with, but those are the pieces sometimes that you enjoy more because of the initial challenge. It's an ongoing exploration, really, and I think that's what's so wonderful about playing the music, the classical guitar.
The look on I wish you could see the look on Michael's face when you do play, because you can see the intensity of and the passion that's running through you as well, in order to give your best to these works of art, really, I suppose.
Quite so. Well, I guess as a performer, you are putting a certain amount of pressure on yourself to make sure that you do the composer proud. So a composer wrote the music. This is a very different thing to a classical guitarist against someone maybe like Jimi Hendrix, who would write their own songs. Most classical guitarists will play music that other people have written, like Isaac Albéniz, who wrote Asturias that I just played. And you want to do them justice, and you want to make sure that the audience, that you're communicating something to the audience. There's a bit of responsibility there. You want to do them proud, you want to do yourself proud because of all the hours that you've spent practicing. But also, it is a genuine passion of mine, and I do enjoy playing a lot. I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So, and there'll be a huge variety of music tomorrow evening, including 2 pieces by Albéniz, including Asturias, and a whole selection of other. I think actually the programme is listed on the Gloucester Cathedral website for anyone who's interested in the music I'll be playing. Yeah,
you can go along. It all starts at 7:30, so best to get there a little bit beforehand. Make sure you get your seat sorted. As Michael said, a whole variety of music coming your way tomorrow night. Great place to play as well. I mean, it's just such a wonderful venue.
It's a beautiful building. I'm actually returning to Gloucester Cathedral. I played there last year in the nave, and it's one of the buildings, I think, certainly in England, perhaps even in the world. It's absolutely wonderful. What I noticed, actually, I cited earlier that I just got back from a trip to Australia. When you're in Australia, it's very interesting because historical buildings are from around the kind of 1820s, 1830s, and you get back to somewhere like England and you walk around somewhere like Gloucester, and history is just everywhere. In Gloucester Cathedral, it's a historic venue. The sound as well for the guitar will be beautiful in the chapter house. Lovely resonant, very dry sound in here in the studio. It'll be very different tomorrow evening with all the stone reverberating and the sounds of the guitar bouncing off the walls, and it really does create much more kind of a reverberant tone. And it's just a wonderful venue, and thanking all the guys down at Gloucester Cathedral for all the hard work they've put into organising the concert.
If that doesn't sell it for you, I don't know what will. Michael, it's been lovely meeting you. Thank you so much for coming in. And like I said, if you're ever back in the county, please do let us know. It'd be great to get you back into the studio.
I will. Be a pleasure.
Thanks very much. There you go. Go along tonight, Gloucester Cathedral, tomorrow night, 7:30, and you will hear Michael Christian Durrant picking up his guitar once more and just wowing you, I guarantee you.
BBC Radio Gloucestershire.